In this video, we're talking about teaching English to kids, children, or young learners. Now, I'm not going to be describing just one game or just one activity in this video. I'm going to go through the basics of what you need to do as an English teacher when you're teaching children. And if you can successfully put into practice everything that I tell you in this video, then it's going to make classes much more enjoyable for you and your students. So let's get started with the first point I want to touch on, which is about responsibilities. Now, I know as grown-ups, we hate having responsibilities, but kids love them, especially in the classroom. If you're not giving your students responsibilities in the classroom, then they could feel demotivated because they're not getting involved in the classroom, and then they won't be interested in what you have to say to them. So think about everything that you do as the teacher and think about what you can delegate to your students. It could be something as simple as cleaning the whiteboard, or it could be something like taking attendance, or even collecting the students' course books afterwards. You could even get the students to lead a game in the online classroom. When I teach young learners, we always love playing bingo to practice and review vocabulary. Bingo is really simple. So why do I have to lead it? So what are you going to do now as an English teacher? You're going to think about all the things that you do in your classroom now at the moment and make a list of everything you do in your classroom and think about what you can delegate to your students. It's a win-win situation. The more things you can delegate to your students, the more involved they'll feel and the more interested they'll be, and the more motivated your children are going to feel in your online classroom. And you as a teacher are going to free up more time to do other things in your online classroom as you go along, like helping your students. Okay, so the second tip I've got for you is teaching talking time and the student-centered approach, which is really important. Teachers taking time, or sometimes referred to TTT, you want to have less teacher talking time and more student talking time. So TTT stands for teacher talking time, and you have student talking time. So basically what you want to do is you want to make sure that your students in your online classroom have more talking time than what you have teacher talking time, because that way you're going to keep them interactive and you're going to keep them interested in your lesson. Basically, what this means is you are the teacher, so shut up and let the students talk instead. Remember, this class is for them and it's not for you. If you think about a graph like this, where you have the teacher talking time at the top and the student talking time at the bottom. And ideally, you want this line to be dropping towards student talking time more often than not. And this is really tied into the student-centered approach when teaching. So when we talk about the student-centered approach, what this can look like in class is that you allow the students to lead tasks, you let them talk, you allow them to take control. Now, one of the biggest problems that teachers have is that we write a lesson plan, don't we? For example, we probably quite possessive of our lesson plan, and we don't like to deviate from it. We don't like that at all. But the students might take the lesson somewhere else that we weren't planning for. For example, if you are introducing new vocabulary, then instead of doing a flashcard matching game on the board, have the students sitting in groups or in pairs with the flashcards in front of them, and you could match the vocabularies themselves, giving them an opportunity to learn about the new meanings by themselves before you as the teacher step in and give them the correct answers. Okay, and this works in a normal classroom and it can work in your online classroom as well. You could even introduce something like a choice board. Now, let's say that you as a teacher have planned for 4 or 5 tasks for this class, but you're happy that maybe you're going to get to do 1 or 2 of those tasks at the end of the lesson. And you give the students a choice of what they would like to do in today's class. I always find this really works well. Once the students have made their choice, then they're going to feel like they've made the decision and they have a bit of control and they have a little bit of responsibility towards their classroom. And they have a little bit of responsibility for what they learn in the class. And again, this will help to improve motivation. Point number 3 that I'm going to touch on is really important when you're teaching children, especially young children, and that is routines. Children in general don't like change, and especially sometimes you're teaching children who maybe might have some special needs, and they definitely don't like change. They like things to be grounded. They like things to be repeated. They like to know what to expect in their lives or what to expect in the classroom. So that's why routines are really crucial when you are given an online class. This helps to give the students a grounding that they need to feel comfortable in the classroom and comfortable with you as the teacher. And this means that you make sure that your classes start and end in the same way every lesson. Especially when you're teaching young children, this makes the whole lesson a lot easier, and they know exactly what to expect when the lesson starts and when the lesson ends. You could have songs that begin and end the class, or YouTube nowadays has so much things that you can offer that you can maybe share your screen. In terms of songs for young learners, there are songs that really can help you start your class. These are songs that help you to end the class too, and these will just form part of your overall routine, and your students will just expect this when you are busy doing your lesson. You can then think about routines that you can use at the beginning of your class, like perhaps you want to practice some target language at the beginning. And I usually ask my students like questions like, how are you? How was your day? What did you do today? How was school? What did you do in school? Can you tell me 3 things that you maybe did in school? What did you have for dinner tonight? Any of those kind of things are like routine questions, and they will get to know that's what you are going to be doing at the start of every lesson. And it encourages them to speak to you as well. You can also review any vocabulary that you maybe learnt in the previous class, and perhaps at the end of the class, before you play your end of the class song, you could do a game or a speaking task with that student. Okay, so this is what you're going to do every single time when your student comes to your class, and every single time you're doing something new at the beginning or you're doing something, they're not going to feel comfortable, they're not going to feel relaxed, they're not going to want to talk to you. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do something different in every class, but there's a need to have some kind of structure in place when you are teaching young learners. For example, the ending and the start and the ending of your lesson is always the same. Okay, so point number 4 is something that all English teachers working with children are quite familiar with, and that is fast finishes. Now, fast finishes is a term that describes the student that always finishes first when you're doing like a group lesson. Now, that usually happens, and it's very typical, is that you set your students an activity perhaps individually, where you can sit back and think, this activity is going to take this long. I've got all the time in the world. Now I can maybe check what we are going to do next. I can maybe mark some work, how it is in the classroom that they have handed in. But that's not, there's always that one student in the classroom that says, I'm finished, teacher. And then you have to think of something quickly to give that student. And it's the same in your online classroom. Now that the student has finished their task and they are now primed to start distracting maybe the other students in the class if you are doing a group activity or you have a group of students. So for you as an English teacher, it's really important that you have something up your sleeve to give to that student, some extra task, something extra activity. And to be honest, just keep them occupied and not distracting the other students until they are also finished with what they are busy doing. Now, I'm not a big fan of word searches in the online classroom. I don't really think they are that effective in learning material. But the one thing about word searches is that students absolutely love them. I don't know why. And also, they can be quite time consuming. So let's say you've set your students a task that you're busy doing, like for writing task, or maybe it's a reading comprehension task that you're busy doing. And you've got that one student who finishes before everyone else. Just hand them a word, give them a word search that they could maybe do with a list of vocabulary that the student can then get on with and until everybody else is done. You can then stop the student working on that work search and then carry on with whatever your next activity is going to be. Being able to deal with fast finishes is really an important skill to learn. So you need to always come to the classroom, even your online classroom, as a teacher with material that you can give to fast finishers. And some students, even if it's a one-on-one lesson, you will find that some students race through the coursework. They don't want to go at your pace that you're doing, and they want to finish before the end of the lesson. So you need to have something up your sleeve that you can use your time effectively at the end of the lesson. Okay, so the fifth tip I've got is positive feedback. Positive feedback is really important, or praise. Students thrive on knowing what the teacher thinks they are doing well, so it's really important. You can show this when you're communicating with the students, but obviously if the student misbehaves or does something wrong, then obviously you tell them that too. As teachers in general, we tend to look for things that students are doing wrong or bad, but what we really want to do is change our mindset on that. Especially in the online classroom, we want to look for moments when the students are doing something really great and good and praise them for it. And point number 6 is linked to this point, and that is about the reward system. Giving your students a star system is sometimes described as a disciplinary system, but let's focus again on the positive reinforcement. Think about a way that you can reward your students frequently throughout the class for doing things that you want them to do, especially if they are young kids. This really keeps them focused, keeps them on task, and keeps them wanting to get more and more rewards. One of the classic ways is a star system, and that you have a small little booklet with you or a sticker chart, and you can just put some stickers or some stars on it as you go along every time they do something well. And then when you get to the end of the term or the end of your lesson package, you can maybe count up how many stars that they've got and share it with the students and with their parents. In a digital way, like I use Classing a lot, and they have got like little trophies. So every time a student does something really well, I always end up giving them a trophy. And it's great because they always end up counting their trophies, seeing how many trophies they end up with at the end of the lesson. The next point I want to touch on is parents. So you know that the students, like you wanted to be interacting with parents of your students as well. They usually hang around. When you're doing an online classroom and as you are teaching young children, you'll probably find that the parents either sit next to the children or they're somewhere in the room where they can hear and see what's going on in the online classroom. If you are having a problem in the class, it's a good thing to maybe call a parent or to speak to the parent about whatever and build up that good relationship with the parents. With my students, I build up quite a good relationship with most of my parents. And so if there's ever an issue or there's some problem, I'm easily able to talk to them because I've built up a relationship over time with them. Okay, so tip number 8 is short activities. So it's really important not spending a long time on the same task, especially in an online classroom, because your students are going to lose focus and they're going to get bored. If you're doing this, the students will really get bored. And if the students get bored, then we know what happens. They start to distract other students or they start misbehaving if you are doing a one-on-one lesson. So if you as a student, you really want to be able to time your activities and make sure that you're leading from one activity into another activity and that you've got a good amount of time for each activity, that you're not spending too long on an activity that your student is getting bored. You could set a timer or a countdown timer for each task that you're busy doing, and that the student can see in a visual way how much time they have got for each task that you are busy, or for each thing that you are busy doing with them. So we were talking about point number 9 is very similar, and then that is talking about the type of activities you're doing. So my advice is to keep the activities varied. Make sure that you're getting your young learners to do activities that are not repetitive, because if this happens, your students might get distracted again, or they might misbehave. So move on between like writing activities, drawing, speaking, listening, reading, and just do a mixture of everything so that they aren't getting bored and that you're changing it up for them. So especially in an online classroom. If you're doing a speaking task, maybe you can even get your students to stand up, move around a little bit, especially if you can see they're starting to wriggle a lot. Get them to do a little bit of actions or movement to get them to refocus into the lesson. If you're doing like a reading task, for example, why not take the reading cut it into pieces. Maybe you could make little pieces of it so that the student can see like little bits of it around to make it a lot more interactive. Okay, and point number 10 kind of fits in with that, and that's all about visuals. It's having a visual clue and a visual lesson is really important, especially in an online classroom. They help the students to reinforce what they are learning in the classroom. So a typical resource for English teachers when they're working with young children, flashcards, and you can use flashcards online as well. I am going to be making a video all about flashcards and how you can use them in the online classroom. And that's going to be coming up in the next couple of days. So watch out for that video. So when you're introducing new ideas or new concepts or new vocabulary to the classroom, think about how you can represent these with an image or with a picture. If you're teaching online, the more visual aids that you can provide for your young learners, the better it is for them, especially in an online classroom. So there you go. Those are 10 things that you can do in your young learner classroom. This is going to help you to have a much more successful learning environment. And trust me, if you can incorporate these points into your young learner classroom, then you and your students are going to be so much happy and you're going to have so much more fun. Thank you for watching this video. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to my channel before, there are going to be more videos coming up. So if you have subscribed, you are going to get the heads up when those new videos come out. Some new and exciting things are coming up very shortly. And if you haven't watched the video I did before with the top 10 tips, pop into the channel and just have a look at that video. I'll see you in the next video.